Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to do some router work on this template here. It's from the scary movies. Unless you watch the film, it won't mean a lot to you, but it's Take My Strong Hand. So it's a comical piece, and I have done this before on a previous video where I actually routed out the hand, the shirt, and all the sleeve, and I inlaid that with resin. The full piece. Today we're going to use paint today. Somebody's asked me to make one of these, and I said we'll do it with paint, and they were quite happy with that. So on this one, there won't be a lot of routing out. We are literally going to route out in between all these sections. So the sleeve, the shirt, and the hand, they will be slightly raised, and then we will route out all the area behind it, and we'll end up with a little black border running round. We'll talk about that a bit nearer the time. So the only routing we will have to do is inside the letters. So we'll route out all the letters all the way around the edge, and then we do our little border with the washer method. I'll show you that, like I say. And then basically just paint pink hand, the white shirt, and a blue sleeve of the jacket stroke blazer or whatever it is wearing. So not a lot of routing out, and then again we will cut it out on a scroll saw afterwards. The wood we're going to use is just cheap pine, I'm guessing. I got 13 pieces of this from across the road. The guy put it out on his step outside the office, and being cheeky I went over and said, "Do you want these?" He said, "Help yourself." And they were 4 foot by 14, I think that is, across here. So we struck lucky that day. So it's free wood, ideally if you're just starting these projects and you don't want to go out and buy all your fancy woods. Now the template today, as you can see, is basically tracing paper. Now the reason I've used tracing paper, I could not find the original template, and for me to draw it out again, so I got the tracing paper, made it 6 inches. Now originally it was going to be on a fencing board, and I've been down and looked at the fencing boards and they're just rubbish today, so we've gone for this bit of pine. So I literally put the tracing paper on top of my tablet or your laptop, zoomed it out to the size I wanted, and then drew around it with a pencil, and it works fine. You get away with it. So we've got our template there, we've stuck it down, and for me personally, nice bit of fresh carbon paper, not something like this. You want fresh carbon paper, you pop that underneath there, and I like to just draw around that with a pen, pencil, whatever, as long as it transfers it over. And once it's done, we've got our image there. That way we can use that one over and over again. So there's our image all nicely drawn out on there, as you can see. Now I've left that end section off. Remember, we want a little border around here, because when we come to route out, we can just route away all to our heart's content, and then we'll come with a washer and go all the way around the piece. I've also been known to cut out the surround and just leave it connected at one end and one end. That just allows all that wood there for you to run your router on. So we're just trying different methods each time we do a project. So we're all ready to go with that. That's all nicely done. The bits we're going to use, as always for me, are these little CNC bits. These are great little bits. They come with different degrees on, and that basically is the angle at the end. If I can open these up without losing them all, these look like they're 20s, so they're quite even 30s looking at that. The point on that is to be a 30. I can show you this one, which is a 15, I believe. There's not a lot in it really. That bottom one is a 15, that top one is a 30, and there is just a little slight difference. I do prefer to use the 13s and 20s. They have a shaft on them of a 3.175mm. Now they will fit your Dremel if you have the router attachment. If not, you will need what they call an adapter reducer collet, like so. And all it is a tube, and your CNC bit fits into there. That now is a 1/4 inch shaft on. That will fit your 1/4 inch router, no problem. If your router takes 1/2 inch shanks, you also need a bigger adapter. So we will use this to do inside the lettering here. If you want to take a moment with your pencil just to mark off what you want on something like this, it's not too much complicated. So we want to remove all the penciled out areas in between there in between there and around there, and then we'll do the line all the way around. Once we've done all that, just a simple case coming with a little washer, we'll pop it there and draw around it, and that should hopefully give us our little border like so. Okay, once it's all routed out nicely with that CNC bit around the lines, I will come in with a end milling bit. These are fantastic bits, eBay or Amazon. They have the same size shaft on them, so you will simply remove your CNC bit, pop in your end milling bit, set it to the same depth, which I'll work on is about 3mm. I do have a little gauge somewhere, if I can just see it there, across there. But I just made myself a bit of wood, so you pop that in your router, sit your router on top of there, and that's my 3mm, like so. And I know it's 3mm, more or less, because it's the same thickness as that bit of 3.175. So that's the depth I work at when I'm routing out. Even if I'm putting paint in or resin, it's always the same depth. So that will be the depth of our letters only, and the bit on the surround bit. Okay, so let's pop the CNC bit in. We'll set it to 3mm, and basically all we're going to do is just route out the inner sections of these letters up to that line. Remember, if it was outset on my last project, I actually removed all this back section, so a little bit easier maybe this one. We'll see as we go along. Okay, let's start routing this one out. Right, so we've got that CNC bit in the router there, you can just see, and I've set it to roughly 3mm. You just like slide our little gauge over, you can just see the clearance on that. You can obviously go out and purchase proper depth gauges, or what I do on my other projects, and I've done it on this one, is a little sample there, and if that looks deep enough, then that's what we stick at. And if you go away and use your router on something else, you can come back, pop it on top of there, and set it to the same depth again. Okay, right, remember we've only got the letters to route out, and in between those little bits here around the end. So not much of a router project, but just a nice little fun project on recycled wood. Okay, let's start routing this one out. Okay, you can see from that we've done inside all the letters. Quite powdery this wood today, but remember it is free wood, so we can't complain too much. But we've done inside the letters, and if you get really close, you should just be able to make out that pencil line there. Look, never route out on the line. So before we do the clear out, I have removed one little section there. Well, that will be our depth gauge. When we come to put the end milling bit on, we'll set it to that one. But before that, I'm just going to go around the full piece and around the hand bit there, just so when we come in with the end milling bit, because we've already gone around this with the CNC bit, this will all come away without any of these pieces breaking off. Okay, so let's just quickly go around the full piece, and then we'll be popping our end milling bit on. Right, so we've made it all the way around the outline, round the hand, and obviously we've done the letters already with that little CNC bit. So we've took that out of the adapter collet. You will get a lot more projects after that, for sure. Now we're going to pop in one of these end milling bits. Remember, these are just the bits that I use, and they're just cheap eBay, Amazon specials. So I will put links in the title. So the end milling bit, we picked a small one that we know we can fit inside these letters. Remember, we've got to clear it out, like that one there, and obviously fit it in. And when we come to these side sections, we can just route away to our heart's content, clearing enough so that we can actually get that washer all the way around the piece to make the actual framework. Remember, we're going to cut that off afterwards. You'll see as we go on. So we're going to pop that in the router. We'll set it to that depth there, a little depth gauge, or remember, you can use your piece of wood. Basically remove all these letters and then clear it out 1/4 inch, maybe 3 or 4 millimeters all the way around the piece. Right, you can see from that we've cleared all those letters out with that end milling bit, no problem whatsoever. And remember, because we've already gone round with the CNC bit, most of that was just popping out nicely. Now people have asked me, can you do this with just with the end milling bit? And I have done the odd little project, but your lines, edges are not as crisp. And these aren't fantastic. If you get really close, we've still got little fluffies on those. We will go around and tidy that up. That is just the nature of the wood. Nothing wrong with the bits, I can assure you. So that's all the lettering done. The next stage now is basically to remove a section all the way around the full piece. It won't take long. And there is other options, remember. We could have drawn your line straight on there, like so. Routed out that section and then cut it out on a saw. On previous projects, I would actually cut this out on a saw first, but leave it attached at the top and leave it attached there, just so that it keeps that surrounding wood in place. And that just makes it easier for your router to work on. And when you've done all your routing out, you can literally just remove that tag there and one at that end, and the full piece will come out from the surrounding wood. But on this one, just to show you, basically, we're going to route out a distance, a good bit, maybe 1/2 inch, even 1/4 inch. So we're making a little bit work for ourselves, but then we'll come with a washer and I'll show you that. Pop it on there, literally draw around, and that will give us the same distance round the full piece. Okay, but before that, we'll just continue with that end milling bit and route out the surrounding area. Right, so we've done all that clear out. The reason I've done this, because we're going to come in with a washer now and draw a line all the way around to give us that backer board, as we're going to call it. And then we're simply going to come in with a scroll saw and cut across that line. So basically, if you remember the original template, we've got that little border, we'll call it, that little framework all the way around the full piece. So we want to do exactly the same on this wood now. And obviously there was different options. We could have drawn the line at the same time of when we did the template, and then just cut that out as it was, and then come back in with a router and just nibble away at that. Is one of your options. On previous projects, as mentioned before, I normally cut it all out but leave it attached at the top or the sides. Do all your routing, and that way, because we've already cut this line here, you can just route over the top, no problem. And this is another third option where we've routed enough space just to get a washer in. Now the washer I use normally, just a little small one, is a washer that comes on the end of your sanding drums. So I basically take that off and we'll place it on there. Now bigger washers, the distance between there and there is the distance of how big your backer is going to be, and obviously different sizes for different areas. So we're simply going to get the smallest one we've got, we're going to place it in there, draw all the way around, and that will be our backer ready to cut out. So we'll just go around this quickly, and you can see it's just enough to leave that line for you. Coming around here, right, you get the general idea from that, and I'll basically go around the full piece, and that is just enough, as you can see, to leave that framework. So I'll complete this, and then we're going to come in with the scroll saw to cut it out. For me personally, I like to use a spiral blade. They will cut in any direction. Any other standard blade, your pin blade or pinless, will cut this out just as easy. Okay, let's continue doing our border, and then we're straight on to the scroll saw. Right, so we've got our Pegas number 5 spiral blade set up on the saw. We've took the tension up at the back. We've got our ping ping sound. We're now ready to cut. Remember, with your scroll saw blades, they want to feel smooth on the way down and rough on the way up, and that's the same for spiral blades as well as straight or flat blades, pinless or pinned. So right, we can just about see our pencil line. So we'll follow this all the way around. Like I said, with spiral blades, we can just feed that along slowly. No need to turn this wood at all. Whereas with your other two blades, your pinned and pinless, you would have to cut down here, turn this full piece to cut down there, then turn again. So a lot of turning and twisting, but it's a personal choice. A lot of people do not like these spiral blades. Okay, let's just cut this one out. Okay, so we've made it all the way around with that Pegas number 5 spiral blade. We'll keep this bit of wood. We'll no doubt find another little project for that. And there's our basic shape of our piece that we're going for today. Now the only downside with your spiral blades is when you turn them over, you will get these little fuzzies. I don't know if you can see that. Some woods are worse than others, and that's just the nature of the blade, but it takes a matter of seconds to sand it down on something like this. Obviously, if you were doing a more detailed project, it would take a lot more sanding down, but you can just about make out those little fuzzies here, little fuzzies. Yeah, they're gone now, so no big deal there. That is the only problem with those spirals, as I say. So now for me, before we actually get into the painting side of things, I just want to give it a little tidy up. If you've seen my previous videos, I like to use these just eBay special engraving bits, not to get confused with carving bits. And I get one on the end of my flexi cable. This simply attaches to the end of the Dremel over there in the corner. Get one with a nice flat bottom, and that is just enough to go in to give it a general tidy up, bit of sanding down just to round these edges off. We don't have to go too crazy. Remember, we're going to paint inside all these letters, so any overflow we will come with a mouse sander and sand it all down again, so we don't have to go too crazy on that one. But for now, we'll give it a general tidy up, not forget to do all these sides here, and then when we come back we'll sort the paints out. Okay, that's enough general tidying up for me. So we came in with that engraving bit just to clear out inside those letters there, look. Then a mouse sander to skim over the top. Remember, we are going to sand over this again once we've painted inside those letters. And also we went around a bit of sandpaper just to sort it out, and it's a little bit smoother on the back. Okay, painting wise, now we're going to paint all our inner sections or inner cuts first, inset should we say. So it's going to be white for all the lettering, and we can basically just put that in quite freely. Any splashes or overflow, should we call it, remember, once we sand that off, that should all go nice and crispy again. So we have white for the letters. There's one what do you call that, cuff link, we'll say, on his jacket there, whatever it is. We'll pop that bit of yellow in there just to brighten it up, and then the little black, we will do all the side walls and all the back section, getting in between those fingers. Then obviously when we sand it all down, we will come back again, pop some nice blue on there, maybe for his jacket, a bit more white in there, that one there, I think that's blue, that one, and a bit of pink stroke brown, whatever colour we can find for the hand. Okay, so for now we're going to paint these ones in, and then do a bit of sanding, and then straight on for the other paints. Right, so we've painted all the inset pieces, all the lettering there, look. We've done the button there, cufflink, whatever it is, and obviously we've done all the black. All those side walls, remember, do not forget to do your side walls, and I've thrown a bit on the back on this one. And you also notice there, maybe, off camera, I basically just routed out a nice slit with that little end milling bit. We've got plenty of thickness there, so we've gone in a fair way, and that is just enough to make a nice hanger when you come to hang it, and that will be flush against the wall. So we've got plenty of there. In fact, if I just get a little screw to show you, or a piece of one of these bits here, that's got in that much, and that is plenty for your piece to hang on when you're going to put it on the wall like so. Okay, that saves you having to get hooks and bits and bobs and all the rest of it. Right, so we've painted all those bits now. Remember the overflow there, you can basically just throw it on as easy as you like. So now we're going to sand over the top of that, get that all nice and smooth and crispy again, hopefully. We had no sealants on this wood. Some wood you will have to seal because the wood can, the paint can bleed into the wood. If you see all your grain lines, basically like straws all compacted together, we've cut into those straws so your paint can bleed into those. But as we're painting the full piece, and I've not had a lot of bleed on any of my projects, to be honest, we don't need any sealants or whatever fancy things that they've got out on the market. So quick sanding over, orbital sander. I've got an 80 on there. It's a bit coarse, but it'll soon clear that off, and then we can skim over top with a 120, and then we'll go back indoors again and basically paint the remaining top section. Right, that's the piece all nicely painted. The only issue I did have was the painting of the sleeve itself. I didn't have enough of the dark blue, so I started with this. Can we get that? Sea blue. Painter's Touch paints. These are great little paints for painting, and ideal for outdoor pieces as well. Now, I don't know if it was originally what was on the wood. Remember, it's recycled. And I did give it a quick sanding over, but obviously not enough. So there might have been some stain in there, some oil or some varnish from whatever the previous item was used for, piece of wood. And it just didn't take. It dried nice, but you could basically see all the grain and wood through. And I'm not overly bothered about that. If I get really close, you still see a little vein there. Look. So in the end, I had to go over with a dark blue, which was my original colour. And there was just enough in there. If I can just show you, dark blue, just enough in there to go over the top. And personally myself, I think we might have got away with a third coat, but we're going to leave it at that. And that's it done. So all nicely painted. For the hand itself, I've noticed with these kind of skin tone ones, boiled linseed oil on there, and that's plenty for what we want. Now it is a gloss piece. You see that shine from there just. But it won't be glossy enough for me, so you know it's coming. Bit of varnish, whatever there is at the time. 151 seems to be quite popular. And I'll just give it a couple of coats just to say we've given it a go. More so to get those side walls there. So once this is sprayed up, this little project will be finished. Right, that's it. This little project is finished. So I give it 3 or 4 coats of that varnish spray. That's just a personal preference. For me, just gives a nice finish. And on those side sections, and obviously we've done the hand as well. Just the way I like to finish my projects on 90% of them anyway. So there we have it. Take my strong hand from these scary movie films. We routed it out on recycled pine. For the routed out section, we come in with those little CNC bits, do all our lines, and then we came in with the end milling bits. Remember, these are just eBay and Amazon special. I will put some links in the title. There's obviously better bits out there, profile bits, liner bits, spiral up cuts. But if you're just starting off with this little hobby of routing, just get some nice end milling bits, CNC bits, and you won't go wrong, just to start you off with. Once I did all the routing out, we cut it out with a Pegas number 5 spiral blade. Those teeth are spiraled the full length of that blade, so that will cut in any direction. Ideal for larger projects, but a standard pin blade or pinless would have cut this out just as easy. And then Painter's Touch paint, just to finish it off with. They're great little paints. I do prefer those, to be honest. Or acrylic paints would have painted this just as easy. You might just need 2 or 3 coats on. And then obviously at the end here, Nice bit of 151 varnish to cover the old piece, and not forgetting that bit of boiled linseed oil just on the hand bit at the end here itself. And the old piece comes in at 16 inches by, we'll call it 6 inches high. And that's it. This little project is finished. Take my strong hand from the scary movies, routed out on recycled pine. Thank you very much for watching.